I just screwed up again. My apologies. I don't know why I can't click on the right thing. I will say, yeah, I got it, I got it, I got it, and then I do something that screws it all up. So my apologies. So this will be week 2, lecture 2, part 3. Damn it. Now, that being said, okay. Talking about the regular and secular clergy. Um, because the issue was the parish clergy, by definition, followed the vita activa. The regular clergy, the monks, followed the vita contemplativa, contemplative life or the active life. When you have that, that's all works all well and good, but then it becomes a mixed version. If you have the regular clergy, it doesn't make sense because that's putting two things together, two legal designations, two forms of life, combining them. Again, this is going to be a major issue for the High Middle Ages, which we will see when we get there. So, we are now here with the state of being religious. I already mentioned the Ordo Clericus, the Ordo Monasticus. And here, I just want to emphasize again the importance of the term ordo in Latin. It is one of the most important medieval Latin words, ordo. Can apply to different things. And if you joined a monastic order, you entered into a legal status or status. You entered religion, as it was said, in statu religionis. You became part of a legally defined definition of being a religious. If you were ordained, you also entered into religion, but in a different sense. Now, I have it there too, the 3 orders. The problem here is that these 3 orders is not the Ordo Clericus, Ordo Monasticus, and Ordo Laicus. Okay, that is 3 orders, because ordo can be order legally. But this is a later legal definition codified in the 12th century, but it applies here already to the 3 orders of society. Basically, the nobles, the clergy, and the laity. Everybody else, with the peasants. Yeah, peasants. The nobles were defined as those who fought. The clergy were defined as those who prayed, and everybody else was considered a peasant, those who worked. Now, again, come back to this because in the High Middle Ages, in the 12th century, this was formulated, and already there are tensions and splits and fissures, and how do we deal with this ideal? It's all nice and neat and organized with the realities of life that we are experiencing. Especially when you have nobles who become bishops, and you have quote unquote peasants. Some of these became merchants and became very, very wealthy. I'll come back to all those things later. But that is kind of the origins of all of this. And it became a real problem for society and how to deal with the legal definitions of these peoples. And that leads me then to the last slide here, religion, faith, and belief, which is also looking forward, because it gets at the question of the extent to which the Middle Ages was an age of faith. In some ways, that is the overarching question for this course. Age of faith or an age of reason? What does it mean? Are those two things distinct? Now, here I'm not going to give you the solution or the answer, except to say that the opposition between faith and reason throughout this course was never recognized, if there was such an opposition. That's a later division between the two. Here, throughout this course, we're still talking about Christendom as a single geopolitical entity. And the question was, how do we live the Christian life within Christendom? And how do we make sure that people are Christian? And I have there these three processes on this slide: Christianization, religionization, and confessionalization. Confessionalization is a later development, 16th century development, so we're not even going to be talking about confessionalization with respect to this course, but I just wanted to put it out there because there is this continued development. If you want to hear about confessionalization, you have to take my Reformation course, B354. Anyway, it's been argued, not by me, in a very famous article by John Van Ingen, who was teaching at Notre Dame, even though he was not Catholic at all. Came out in 1986, I believe it was, called The Christian Middle Ages. And he argued that by the year 1000, which is basically when this course starts, theoretically, in terms of the chronological span, everyone in Europe, or within Christendom, was Christian except the Jews. What did it mean to be Christian? I think I addressed this talking about the Franks last lecture. It meant to be baptized and to attend Christian worship, nothing else. But beginning in the 11th and 12th centuries, once everybody was Christian, the question then became, how do we make people Christian? How do we actually live a Christian life? Does everybody have to become monks? That was already one answer and solution. As this process of Christianization and the spread of Christendom, which we'll be talking more about next lecture and so, was ongoing. What does it really mean? If we don't become, we now sort of know what it means to live a monastic life. How do we live a Christian life within society if we're not a priest? That pastoral endeavor of how to make everyone religious is a process I've designated as religionization. So we have Christianization, religionization, that eventually, in the 16th century, after the chronological frame of this course, develops into confessionalization. But that's another issue. But here it's important to see this development: Christianization and religionization. And for all of the period between 1000 CE and 1500 CE, we're talking about Christianization and then religionization, and increasingly religionization when we're talking about Christendom. Did that mean everybody was supposed to be Christian? Of course. Does that mean everybody was supposed to be religious? Yes. And in the later Middle Ages, we will see that definition of who is in statu religionis, who can be designated legally as a religious, was expanded, at least theoretically, to include everyone. But we'll get there when we get there. That raises the question then, so if everybody is a religious, was the Middle Ages then indeed an age of faith? But what does that mean? And if it was an age of faith, could it then not, by definition, be also an age of reason? Those are some of the questions that this course is supposed to address, because, as I argued in the first couple of lectures, how we label things affects our understanding of things. So the question then comes about, how do we understand the developments of the High and later Middle Ages? And how do we describe them, and how do we label them? Because we have to somehow do that. We have to categorize. We are human beings that if we learn something, we only learn it when we can put a name on it and identify it and describe it. That's what this course is about. And that's why this is also important. And here, I'm going to leave it here. My apologies for the 3 parts. It was not intended. I'll try to get that better for next time. But still, all 3 parts taken together are a lot less than the 3 parts of lecture 1 of week 2. And I know that, so we'll still, I think, be okay with time. But this is, again, laying the foundations, the basic structures of Christendom, part 1 of this course, leading up to your first midterm. So that's what this is all about, in order to provide the background and the foundation for understanding the developments of Christendom within the High and later Middle Ages. Thank you so much. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.